Sanctuary online folks. Welcome to Sunday School. Today is May the 1st. We are going to be covering the story of the Good Samaritan, specifically examining the antagonists of Luke 10:25 through 37. So also, hi in-person folks. It's good to see y'all.
Yo.
Alright, so we've all heard the story of the Good Samaritan. Basically that you got two dudes who passed by this one guy. They're like, we're not going to help you, but the Good Samaritan, somebody that ideally this man would not have gotten along with in real life, stops by to help. So, have we ever thought about why Jesus told this story to begin with? And why he made the priest and Levite the bad actors when it was a religious leader who asked Jesus, what must I do to inherit eternal life, and sparked this parable? So, to give us context for what Pastor Angie's going to be preaching on later, I thought we should explore the roles and responsibilities of the priests and Levites in ancient times, as well as why Jesus had a beef with the religious leaders. So, throughout his ministry, Jesus condemned the hypocrisy of the religious leaders, most notably in Matthew 23. Verse 23, which I put on screen in the NIV 2011 version. This came to mind when I was creating the Sunday school lesson. And it says, woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give 1/10 of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former. So, Jesus also condemned the hypocrisy of the religious leaders in the parable of the Good Samaritan. In giving the priest and Levite a difficult choice in the story, he revealed that the religious leaders would rather follow the letter of the law than the spirit of it. So let's look at the roles and responsibilities of the priests. In the Old Testament, the priests offered sacrifices to God on behalf of the people. But in order to do this, they had to remain ceremonially clean. Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy cover a lot of rules that they had to follow. But one in particular I'd like to call out is they were prevented from touching a corpse. However, priests were also responsible for atoning for the shedding of innocent blood. This was a time-consuming and labor-intensive task, which I put all of the requirements listed in Deuteronomy 21, 1 through 9 up here. Some of the ones I'd like to point out, they had to measure the distance between the body and the nearest town, and they also had to find an appropriate sacrifice, which would mean a female cow that's never had calves and that's never been put to work. Now let's go on to the Levites. As for them, God had set them apart as the spiritual firstborn children of the nation of Israel. They primarily cared for the tabernacle, and some of their roles included setting up and taking down the tent of meeting, and later leading worship. Similar to the priests, the Levites had to remain ceremonially clean. They too couldn't touch a corpse. They were also called to generally love their neighbors as they would love themselves. Which brings us back to the story of the Good Samaritan. Where's my notes? And for all you Harry Potter fans, I put up a really appropriate quote here. So, yes, I thought of you specifically.
I appreciate you.
So, for anybody not familiar with Harry Potter, one of the main characters, Albus Dumbledore, says to the main character at some point, we all must face the choice between what is right and what is easy. And that definitely applies to the story of the Good Samaritan. Now, we don't know the intentions of the priest or Levite in this story, but I believe Jesus presented the parable of the Good Samaritan as a choice between what was right and what was easy. So let's imagine their dilemma for a minute. They're walking down this road, and they see this man lying totally still. Was he alive? They could nudge him to make sure, but then they would risk, becoming unclean if the man happened to be dead. And if he was a corpse, they would have to deal with the inconvenience of purifying themselves, which I didn't mention before, but it is a 7-day process where you have to purify yourself, I believe, on the 3rd day and the 7th day, if I'm correct. Besides, they likely had things to do. They couldn't just take a whole week off. Next section. So, we know that the priests and Levites chose to avoid the man altogether. In doing so, they stayed ceremonially clean and were able to complete their ministry duties as normal. They probably also avoided a delay in their journey. But in doing what was convenient for them, the priest and Levite neglected to show mercy to an injured man. And it would have been just as damning if the man had been dead, After all, the priest would have neglected to seek justice on his behalf. And that, as Jesus pointed out, was worse than becoming ceremonially unclean. So to close, we can all learn something from the parable of the Good Samaritan. Difficult choices are going to come along, and our decisions will cost us one way or the other. But as Pastor Angie will explain later, doing what is right comes with a greater reward. So, anybody got questions?
Yes. Why does it have to be a female cow that's never worked a good one?
That is a good question. I am going to defer to the one with more Bible knowledge. Apostle Leanne, do you know why it had to be a female cow?